Tika. So this video is all about answering the question, should I do a 3-day load for the hCG diet plan? So the original protocol, of course, had a 2-day basic load for most people, and then he instructed people who were kind of in a habit of dieting a lot prior to starting hCG to load for more days. And I know other protocols that are out there right now regarding hCG have people load for 3 days. So that's the question, should you load for 3 days? My take on it is basically to ask yourself 2 questions when you are considering a 3-day load. The first question is, are you considering a 3-day load because you truly need it, or are you honestly using that as an excuse to buy more chocolate cake? And the second question you need to ask yourself is, how do you feel the morning after your 2nd day of loading? So we'll talk about each of those questions now. So the first question, do you really need it, or do you just want more cake? This is a valid question. The only round that I did load for 3 days is the round that was a total flop. And the reason for that is because for me, it was an excuse. I ended up eating a lot of sugary foods and binging on that for 3 days, and it totally set off my sugar addiction again. And so for me, that particular 3-day load and the way that I loaded led to a horrible round and horrible results that I didn't maintain. That was my 2nd round. None of my other rounds went like that. Now, I'm not saying it was because of the 3-day load specifically, but it comes back to the reason for the load. So in reality, when I was debating a 3rd loading day for that round, my reason behind it really had nothing to do with, strategically doing that in order to have better fat loss on my round. Because, that would be a good reason if that was the reason I was considering it. The real reason that I loaded for 3 days that round was because I wanted to have one more free, legal day to gorge on whatever sugary foods I wanted in a way that would not be considered normal or healthy at any other time. The thing is, this is a protocol, not a diet, even though I refer to it as the hCG diet all the time just because that's what people search on Google and that's the word that is associated with hCG for people to actually find me. In reality, it's a protocol, meaning that this is changing your whole way of thinking, your whole mental process, how you view food, how you view your body, just all of it. And the thing is, that change that's going to start happening, it's not going to happen overnight, and it needs to start now. You need every decision going forward, if at all possible. You're going to screw up at times and stuff, but whenever you have the self-control and you are making choices in advance, like this one, considering a 3-day load, you need to make these decisions with the idea in mind that you are changing your life. And really doing this will help hCG not to become a crutch that you constantly keep going back to as an excuse to get to load. It might sound funny to people who haven't thought that way, but I know that some of you guys do think that way. Loading is only 2 or 3 days out of a whole 3 to 6 week protocol on hCG. So it's like a tiny amount of the whole time that you spend, and the rest of it's really tough. But I myself have thought that way, and that's why I know there's others out there who have, where you think, oh, maybe I should do a round of hCG. And yeah, of course you're thinking about the weight loss, but you're also thinking about the fact that you get to load and that it's legal and that it's okay to eat all these sugary foods. And if you look at it from the outside, you can recognize that that is not a healthy way to look at it. And the reason I feel comfortable talking about this with you guys is because I've been in that place. I thought those very same things. And that's actually one of the reasons that when I load now, when I've loaded my last 3 rounds, I don't even load using sugars and carbs. So really now there's really nothing fun about loading at all. It's just a part of the process, and it's not something that I'm thinking like, ooh, I'm gonna get to do something that I wouldn't, that would normally be not healthy but that I love. So this is just one thing that you really want to think about. Only you know the answer to this question. And I just encourage you to be honest with yourself about why you are considering the 3-day load. Don't allow yourself to trick you. You're really only hurting yourself if you do that. The second question is, how do you feel the morning after your second loading day? Most likely there will be one of two answers to this question. One is that you'll wake up that third morning and feel almost as stuffed as when you went to bed. And if that's the case, if you feel like that when you wake up that third day, to me, I kind of think you could probably call it good and go ahead and start VLCD. And in fact, that's what happened when I considered a 3-day load on my, I think it was actually my 5th round. I considered the 3-day load and I decided to gauge it that way. And when I woke up after my second load day the next morning, I literally felt, I pretty much felt as full as when I went to bed, 8 to 10 hours prior to that. And so for me, I felt like that's how I knew, like, I'm ready for VLCD. I feel stuffed still. So that's one scenario. And in that case, I feel 2 days was probably sufficient. And if you load well on actual fats, not just foods and just carbs and whatever, if you actually do load on fats, that will most likely happen. A lot of us starting this protocol have already been overeating a lot, so we're not in that situation that Dr. Simeons was talking about where we've been like undereating a lot. If that is the case for you and you've been undereating for a long period of time prior to starting hCG, in that case, it may make more sense for you. The second answer to this question would be if you wake up that third morning and you pretty much feel like you've digested everything and your stomach feels empty. In that case, I could see possibly doing a third loading day. That might be the way to go. The reason that this might happen is if you ended up not loading well enough the first 2 days, inadvertently you ended up not actually having a lot of high fats. And in that case, that third day you can really take to really load on fats. So that may be the case for you. I'm going to post a link for you guys to one of my articles I wrote some time ago showing all the foods that I ate for loading for my 5th round of hCG. I did do a clean load, but as you'll be able to see, I had 4,000 calories each day, and I can't actually remember exactly how many fat grams, but it was a lot of fat. It's not like recipes, but what it shows you is the actual foods that I ate, like how much sour cream and how much cheese and how much different fatty meats and stuff like that. So you can see that. So really what's important is getting those fats in. So just remember, the number one downfall for not loading properly and then having like resulting hunger in the first week of hCG is because of not loading on high fats. So sometimes the point of loading gets missed when going through this process. And sometimes when I'm emailing with people privately and they're struggling that first week because they're having hunger, in a couple cases, I've asked them more specifically, can you tell me how you loaded, like what you ate? Did you eat high fats? And kind of once we broke it down and kind of delved into the details, it became clear. They would let me like, oh, actually, I kind of just ate a lot of crackers. And I just tried to eat a lot of the crackers and stuff like that. And so it became clear that they actually had not actually consumed very much fat at all. They had just mostly filled up on carbs. And so as a result, that first week of hCG, they were feeling awful. But as you can see in this scenario, it's not so much that they needed 3 days of loading, but the days they did load, they needed those to be high fat. So that's really what you want to focus on when you're loading. And I have a whole article and video on clean loading in case you're interested in that. Clean loading basically just involves loading without sugar and carbs. I have found them to be unnecessary. It doesn't mean you have to load this way. But whichever way you load, whether it's clean or you incorporate sugars and starches, either way is fine, but you need to make sure, whichever way you go, that you do eat high fats. Crackers aren't going to cut it. Make sure that it has high fat. So in short, basically you don't have to plan in advance whether or not you'll load for 2 days or 3 days. What you can do is just, when you wake up the morning of the third day, gauge how you're feeling. If you still feel like really stuffed from the night before, you're probably good to go and you can start VLCD. If you wake up and you feel like you could eat a horse, or I don't know, maybe a small lamb, I don't know, your stomach feels empty still, you could possibly use a third load day. And if you do that, keep in mind the purpose of that loading day, use it to load up on high fats. So I hope you guys found that useful. You can find me on Facebook, hCG Chica. I'm also on Instagram, hCG Chica. Those are the two places I am the most when it comes to social interaction. And of course, my blog, I have so much helpful information on there, hcgchica.com. All right, you guys, take care. Bye.